At 80, I spent 47 minutes watching a family video from 27 years ago. My husband was still alive in it. My daughters were younger. Everyone was laughing around our old Christmas table. I watched every minute. Later that evening, my granddaughter sent me a photograph from my 80th birthday. My 3-year-old great-granddaughter Lily was standing beside my chair holding a drawing she'd made for me, and I wasn't looking at her. I was staring at the old video. That's when I remembered her little voice. Great-grandma, look, and my answer. Just a minute, sweetheart. But that minute never came. I had spent almost an hour watching a family moment that was already gone, while another family moment was trying to happen right in front of me. My name is Evelyn Moore. I'm 80 years old and I live in Asheville, North Carolina. For years, I believed the best part of my life had already happened. I never said it quite that directly. Instead, I said things like, "Those were the good years. Christmas used to be wonderful. We had such good times back then. Everything was different when Robert was here." And all of those things were true. Robert was my husband. We built a life together. We raised 2 daughters, Laura and Susan. We had ordinary problems. Bills, work, teenagers, broken appliances, arguments over things I can't even remember now. But when I look back, those years seem warmer somehow. Maybe memory does that. It softens the hard edges. Robert and I both worked. I taught English at a high school. He worked in insurance. Our lives weren't glamorous, but they were full. There were school events, family dinners, vacations we could barely afford, friends coming over, birthday cakes, Christmas mornings, Robert working in the garden, our daughters arguing upstairs. At the time, much of it felt ordinary. That's the strange thing. The years I would eventually miss most were the years I sometimes complained about while I was living them. I didn't know they would become precious. Nobody tells you which ordinary Tuesday you'll someday wish you could have back. After I retired, Robert and I had more time. We traveled occasionally. Nothing extravagant. We visited friends, worked in the garden, sat on the porch. We talked about what we'd do as we got older. Then Robert died when I was 71, 9 years ago. Even now, saying that feels strange. 9 years. Sometimes it feels like another lifetime. Sometimes it feels like last month. After Robert died, photographs became important to me. I'd always kept albums, but now I looked at them differently. A photograph wasn't just a photograph anymore. It was evidence. Robert had stood there. Robert had smiled that way. We had been that young. That day had really happened. Then my grandson helped me put old family videos onto a tablet. That changed everything. Photographs were one thing. Videos gave me his voice. The first time I heard Robert laugh again, I cried. Not because I was sad exactly. I don't know what I felt. Imagine loving a voice for decades. Then one day, that voice disappears. Years later, you press a button, and suddenly it's in the room again. Of course I watched. At first, those videos comforted me. When the house felt especially quiet, I could visit the old days. Robert carving a turkey. Laura opening Christmas presents. Susan laughing at something behind the camera. Grandchildren when they were little. For a while, those memories helped me survive grief. But somewhere along the way, remembering changed. I didn't notice when. I stopped thinking, those were good years. I started thinking, those were the good years. One small word, but that word changed everything. If those were the good years, what were these years? The leftover years? The waiting years? The years after the real story ended? I never asked myself that question. I simply began comparing. Christmas was the worst. Years ago, Christmas happened at our house. Everyone came to us. Robert carved the turkey. The girls sometimes stayed overnight. Later, grandchildren slept upstairs. There were presents everywhere. Too much food. Too many dishes. Too much noise. I used to complain about the cleanup. I'd give almost anything to clean up after one of those Christmases now. But families change. Laura and Susan have homes of their own. Their children grew. Some of my grandchildren are adults now. Christmas rotates between houses. Traditions changed. A few years ago, I sat at Susan's Christmas table. Everyone was there. People were talking, laughing. My grandson Ben was telling some story. I don't remember what it was. Do you know what I was thinking? Christmas isn't what it used to be. I was sitting at a table surrounded by people I loved, thinking about a table that no longer existed. Ben was telling a story happening in the present, and I was somewhere in 1998. That became a pattern. I had 6 boxes in a closet, photographs, letters, old birthday cards, school programs, drawings my daughters made as children, vacation brochures, notes from Robert. I could open one box after lunch, and suddenly it was 4 o'clock. One afternoon, Laura called. "Mom, want to get coffee?" I looked at the photographs spread across my dining table. They were from a family trip we'd taken 34 years earlier. "Maybe another day," I said. "I want to finish organizing some things." She said, "Okay." I spent the afternoon labeling photographs. I remembered the hotel, the weather, the restaurant where Susan complained about her food. I even remembered what Robert had been wearing in one picture. That evening I sat alone at the table, and it occurred to me that I could remember details from a vacation 34 years ago. But I couldn't remember the last meaningful conversation I'd had with Laura. The thought bothered me. Not enough to change me. Not yet. A few weeks later, Ben visited. He found photographs covering the table. He sat down beside me. Unlike some younger people, Ben actually enjoys old stories. At least he pretends to. We went through photographs together. He pointed to one of me and Robert. "You were young." "Thank you for noticing." He laughed. Then he asked, "Grandma, what was the happiest year of your life?" I thought about it. Maybe the year Laura was born. Maybe when both girls were little. Maybe one of the years after Robert and I retired. I couldn't choose. Then Ben asked, "Do you think you've already had it?" I looked at him. "What?" "Your happiest year." He shrugged. "Do you think it's already happened?" I laughed. "What kind of question is that?" "I don't know." He moved on. I didn't. That question stayed with me. "Do you think you've already had it?" Had I? More importantly, had I already decided that I had? I was 80. Did I believe nothing ahead of me could possibly become precious? I didn't have an answer. That spring, I stood at the kitchen window looking into the backyard. Robert had loved that garden. He grew tomatoes, peppers, herbs, flowers. He owned a ridiculous old hat he wore while working outside. I used to tease him about it. After he died, I stopped caring for most of the garden. I told myself, it was Robert's garden, and it was. I didn't want to change it, but gardens don't remain unchanged because you're grieving. They grow wild, things die, weeds arrive. One morning, I noticed yellow near the back, daffodils. Robert had planted them years earlier. I hadn't done anything, yet there they were, blooming. I stood looking at them, and for some reason they felt different from a photograph. The flowers had belonged to our shared life. Robert had planted them, but they weren't blooming 30 years ago. They were blooming now. That thought stayed with me too. Then came my 80th birthday. My family gathered at my house. I wasn't excited about turning 80. 79 sounded old enough, but everyone insisted we celebrate. Laura and Susan came. The grandchildren. Emily brought Lily. Lily was 3. My first great-grandchild. She has the kind of energy only a 3-year-old can have. Everything is urgent. Everything needs to be shown to you immediately. A bug, a cookie, a shoe, a piece of paper with 3 lines on it. That afternoon, someone mentioned an old Christmas video. I found it on the tablet. It was from 27 years earlier. Robert appeared on the screen. I stopped. There he was, alive, moving. talking, laughing. I sat down. I kept watching. One video led to another section of the same recording. 47 minutes. I know because I checked later. 47 minutes. I remember Lily approaching me. Great-grandma, look. She had something in her hand. I barely looked up. Just a minute, sweetheart. Then I returned to Robert. Later, everyone went home. The house became quiet. Emily sent me photographs from the birth. I looked through them. Cake, family, grandchildren. Then one picture stopped me. Lily was standing beside my chair. She was holding up a drawing. I was looking down, not at her. Cookie. At Robert. I stared at that photograph. Then Emily sent a short video. I pressed play. Lily walked toward me. Great-grandma, look. My own voice answered. Just a minute, sweetheart. She waited, then walked away. The video ended. I watched it again, then again. Something about those few seconds hurt more than I expected, because I suddenly understood what had happened. I had been looking at someone I loved and could never have another new moment with, while someone else I loved, someone I could have another moment with, was standing right beside me. I had spent 47 minutes watching my family 27 years ago, while my family was in my house now. And for the first time, I saw what my nostalgia was costing me. I had been so busy missing the people and moments I'd lost that I was beginning to miss the people and moments I still had. I cried that night, not because I'd watched the video. I don't regret watching Robert. I will never regret remembering him. I cried because I finally understood the difference between remembering a life and living inside the memory of one. I had been doing too much of the second. The next morning I looked at my 6 boxes. For a moment, I considered putting everything away. That wasn't the answer. Robert was part of me. Our marriage was part of me. My daughter's childhoods were part of me. I didn't need to erase yesterday to appreciate today. So I made myself a small rule, nothing dramatic. Remember yesterday. Notice today. I could open the boxes. I could watch Robert. I could cry. I could laugh. But I didn't want memories to automatically consume every empty afternoon. A few weeks later, Emily brought Lily over. I was sitting at the kitchen table when Lily came running toward me, paper in hand. Great-grandma. I looked up. Show me. I put everything down. She climbed onto the chair beside me. The drawing was incomprehensible. There was a purple shape. What is this? A dog. Of course. And this? You. I was represented by a large yellow circle. Apparently, I had no arms. I asked her questions. She explained every detail with complete seriousness. Then she laughed. I laughed. And suddenly, I caught myself. This exact thing. A child beside me. A ridiculous drawing. Laughter at the kitchen table. These were the kinds of moments I spent hours looking for in old photographs. Except this one wasn't old. Not yet. It was happening. I looked at Lily differently after that. Not with sadness. With attention. That Christmas we went to Laura's house. The traditions were still different. Robert was still missing. For a few minutes, I felt the familiar ache. I looked around and almost thought, it's not like it used to be. Then another sentence came to me. It's not supposed to be. That surprised me. Why had I expected Christmas at 80 to look like Christmas at 50? Children grow. People marry. Families expand. People die. New people arrive. Tables change. Traditions change. That doesn't mean every change is an improvement. Some changes hurt terribly. But different and worse are not always the same thing. So that Christmas, I tried to be there. Really there. Ben told a story. I listened. Lily decorated a cookie. Most of the frosting ended up on her hands. I helped her. Someone took photographs. For once, I didn't immediately compare them with old photographs. I thought, Someday, these will be old photographs too. That idea changed something in me. When we look backward, we know which moments mattered. The last Christmas before someone died, the last family vacation, the last birthday, the last photograph. We recognize them because we know what happened afterward. But when those moments were actually happening, we didn't know. They were just days, ordinary days. I began thinking about the present differently. There are last times happening now, too. I don't know which ones. Neither do you. Maybe that's frightening. At first, it frightened me. Then I realized fear wasn't the lesson. Attention was. I didn't need to sit at every family dinner thinking, someone might die. That's not living either. I simply needed to notice the people who were still sitting there. Because the moments I missed today were once ordinary days I almost didn't notice. That spring I went into Robert's garden. Really went into it. Not just looked through the window. The weeds were terrible. At 80, weeds seem to grow twice as fast as you can bend down. So I called Ben. I need cheap labor. He laughed. What are we doing? The garden. He came Saturday. We didn't restore everything. I didn't want to recreate Robert's garden exactly. That would have been another way of trying to go backward. We cleared one section. The daffodils were still there. Robert's daffodils. I left them. Then we went to a garden center. I chose lavender. Back home, Ben helped me plant it beside the older flowers. He asked, "Did Grandpa grow lavender?" "No." "Why this?" "I like it." He nodded. I looked at the new plants. "This one's ours." Ben smiled. I didn't realize until later how important those words were. This one's ours. Not Robert's. Not from 30 years ago. Something new, growing beside something old.
For years, I had thought honoring the past meant protecting it from change.
Now I began to understand that maybe the past didn't need protecting. It had already happened. Nothing could take it from me. Robert planting those daffodils remained true even if I planted lavender beside them. Our marriage remained real even if I enjoyed a day without him. My daughters' childhoods remained precious, even though they had become middle-aged women. The old Christmases didn't become less beautiful because a new Christmas made me laugh. Memory wasn't a limited space. I could keep yesterday without throwing today away. Several months later, I sat at my table with 2 photographs. One showed Robert in the garden about 30 years earlier. He was wearing that ridiculous hat. I could almost hear myself teasing him. The second photograph was recent. Ben and I were planting lavender. My hair was white. My hands looked older. Robert wasn't there. Old Evelyn would have stared at the first photograph. I would have thought, I wish I could go back. I still thought it. Of course I did. I would love one more afternoon with Robert. One more dinner. One more argument about something stupid. One more chance to hear his keys at the door. Growing older hasn't made me stop wanting impossible things. But this time, I looked at the second photograph too. Ben was smiling. I was laughing. That day mattered. Not more than the old day. Not less. Differently. And that was enough. I still look through my boxes. I still watch the videos. Sometimes I hear Robert's voice and cry before he finishes the sentence. I still miss the Christmases at our house. I still miss friends who aren't here. I miss the version of myself who could climb stairs without thinking about her knees. Aging involves loss. Pretending otherwise doesn't make us wise. But I stopped saying, "Those were the good years." Now I say, "Those were good years." It sounds almost identical. It isn't. Removing that one little word made room for the rest of my life. There could still be good years. Maybe not years. Maybe good months. Good weeks. Good afternoons. Good ordinary Tuesdays. At 80, I've stopped demanding that the present compete with the past. That's a competition today can never win. Robert isn't coming back. My daughters aren't becoming children again. The old house will never sound exactly the way it once did. So why keep asking today to reproduce yesterday? Today has different people, different conversations, different joys, different losses. And if I spend all my time comparing them, I'll miss what they are. Looking back now, I realize I spent much of the 9 years after Robert died facing backward. I thought missing the past proved how much it had meant to me. Sometimes it did. Grief is love with nowhere obvious to go, but sometimes I was doing something else. I was using yesterday to avoid accepting how different today had become. I didn't want new traditions. I wanted the old ones. I didn't want the garden to change. I wanted Robert in it. I didn't want new photographs. I wanted the people in the old photographs back, but life didn't ask what I wanted. It kept moving. My grandchildren grew. Lily was born. My daughters changed. New memories happened, and I almost convinced myself they mattered less simply because they came later. I don't believe that anymore. I can treasure yesterday without sacrificing today. That's what I wish I'd understood sooner. One afternoon, Emily and Lily came to visit. We went into the garden. The lavender was blooming. Robert's daffodils had finished for the season, but I knew they'd return. Lily was running around asking questions about everything. Emily took a photograph. In it, I'm sitting in a garden chair. Lily is beside me. We're both laughing. I don't remember what was funny. Maybe that's fitting. Some of the best moments don't announce themselves. Later, Emily sent me the photograph. I looked at it for a long time. My first instinct was to print it and put it into one of the memory boxes. Then I stopped. Not yet. I printed it, but I placed it on the table where I could see it. Because it wasn't an old memory yet. It was part of my life now. I looked through the window. The garden was quiet. Robert wasn't there. I wished he were. I probably always will. But Ben was coming Saturday. Laura had called that morning. Susan wanted me to come for dinner next week. Lily apparently had another drawing for me. There was lavender growing where no lavender had grown before. My life didn't look like the life I had at 50. It wasn't supposed to. But it was still my life, and it was still happening. At 80, I finally understood what I'd been missing. The life behind me was beautiful, but remembering it didn't require me to turn my back on everything still in front of me. I cannot return to the years I miss. I cannot make Robert walk through the garden again. I cannot sit at our old Christmas table with everyone exactly as they were, but I can look up when Lily says, "Great-grandma, look." I can listen when Ben tells me a story. I can drink coffee with Laura when she asks. I can plant something new beside something Robert planted years ago. I can notice today. And maybe that's one of the strangest lessons of growing old. We spend so much time missing ordinary days after they're gone. Yet while we're living them, we rarely recognize them for what they are. So now when I catch myself looking backward too long, I remind myself, the moments I missed today were once ordinary days I almost didn't notice. And the ordinary day happening around me right now. Someday, if I'm fortunate enough to look back again, today may become one of the days I miss too. If you've ever found yourself missing the past so much that you stopped noticing what was still happening around you, I'd love to hear what brought you back to the present. Maybe it was a grandchild, a friend, a family dinner, or simply an ordinary afternoon you suddenly realized wouldn't last forever. Share your experience in the comments. Your story may remind someone to look up and notice the life still happening in front of them. And if you'd like to hear more reflections about aging, family, loss, regret, and the lessons we sometimes learn too late, subscribe and join me again for the next story.